Today we're going to look at referral-worthy relationships, which lead to increased revenue. All the good stuff. Now, relationship building, in the way most people do it, isn't really related to revenue. It's kind of a customer service function, or it's just you happen to talk to someone that you get on with. So you build a relationship with them, or alternatively, you just work together over time and, stuff kind of gels. And when that happens, that's great. But you've got this far in the program because you're committed to building your revenue, you're committed to taking control over what happens to your future as a recruiter. So just relying on serendipity, trusting that, if you talk to people, you'll get something on the same wavelength. Not a great idea. Doesn't sound like that's the kind of thing that someone like you, who's committed to actually building your revenue deliberately, to taking control over what happens to your future, doesn't sound like you're the kind of person that approach would appeal to. And besides which, what if you don't meet people that you have stuff in common with and that you automatically gel with? It will happen. It's entirely feasible that you could have an entire candidate pool and client base made up of people that you've got nothing in common with whatsoever. No shared interests, no common hobbies, no common experience. You just happen to be good at working with their niche, which is now your niche. Because let me give you an example of this. And this is really quite sort of personal from my perspective. I mentioned a few days ago that I am, by nature, a total introvert. My idea of hell on earth is going to a party full of people that I don't know and spending 5 hours there. I can think of nothing more stressful and repellent than doing that sort of thing. Just ranking just slightly below that is the idea of going to a networking event and meeting strangers and trying to have a conversation with them. Oh God, no! I am a huge introvert. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't do networking events and that I won't be actually really quite good at doing them. It doesn't mean that if my partner wants to take me out to a party and meet up with new people and, that she's built relationships with through her work or people she's met or whatever, doesn't mean I won't go. Doesn't mean I won't be sociable and strike up conversations. But that's a behavior for me. It's not innate. Will I enjoy it? Well, yeah, sometimes. But will I have built rapport with people and had conversations and had a bit of social back and forth? Yeah, absolutely. But for me, and I suspect for lots of people, it's right against the grain. It's like stroking a cat's fur the wrong way. For a little while it'll purr and like it, and then eventually it'll bite you. Much the same with me. It's a learned response. It's a learned skill for me to network, to cold call, to go and be sociable, to meet strangers. All of that is right against my nature. All I want to do is stay home, read a book, have a nice glass of wine, chat with my partner. That's kind of what I want to do. Everything else is an act of will or discipline. Might I enjoy it when I'm there? Sure, absolutely. But, Wendy's actually got to the point where she's kind of, right, get your game face on because we're going out to enjoy ourselves. Like, okay. That's just me. Now, how many times have I heard that phrase, oh, it's just me? Or it's partner, oh, it's just not me. Which you? The most silly thing I've ever heard is, above all else, to thine own self be true. Which self? I suspect that if you're like most people, you probably behave differently, tell different jokes, talk about different subjects to your friends over a few drinks than you do to your maiden aunt or your grandma. You know what I mean? It's just the way people are. They adapt to the people around them. That's the way it works. So for me, because I'm such an introvert, for me, it's a skill. I have to do it consciously. You might be the opposite end of the scale. You might be a total extrovert and just love meeting new people, in which case the skill that you probably need to learn is to peg it back and listen more and take more control over what you say and how you say it, so that you're not just being chatty and sociable. Yeah, just bringing it back. From either end of the scale, there's behaviour to learn. No matter where you are on that continuum between massive extrovert and massive introvert. Just behaviors, it's tendencies, but you can behave however you want to behave. So for me, rapport building, relationship building, those things are skills. They're behaviors that I've worked on really, really hard over the course of 30 years since I first learned about them. The first sales training course I ever went on with a guy called Dennis Sobey. If you're out there, Dennis, thank you. Really appreciate it, mate. Changed my life. From the first sales training I went on, we're talking about them in a really, looking back, horrifically basic version of rapport building, where you match somebody's in complete body language, and then you check. And oh God, in hindsight, it was embarrassing, but it taught me that there was a framework that I could learn and use. And as I learned more and more about behavioral psychology and researched and developed things and practiced lots and lots of practice, I found that I could develop that skill to such a high level that it looked completely natural, and eventually it felt completely natural. But I was and am always conscious about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And that's part of the secret. So it doesn't matter whether you are introvert, extrovert, bouncy like Tigger, or withdrawn like a 10-year-old bulldog sitting on a cushion. Doesn't matter. What matters is what you do and how you do it. Let's just go back to where we started a week ago, where we started with the 3 growth factors. More customers, spending more each time, coming back more often. You'd think that referral-worthy relationships would be all about coming back more often. Well, they are, but they're also about bringing in more new customers. Because when somebody really trusts you, and that's what we're talking about here, when somebody trusts you to do a good job and make them look good, not make you look good, but if you're so good at your job and you're so trustworthy that you make them look good, they will introduce you to everybody because you're making them look good to more and more people. So it rubs off well on them. So let's slice it down a little bit deeper. First secret, you have to be so trustworthy and so good at what you do that you make them look good. Secondly, you're aiming for different kinds of referrals. And those 2 different kinds of referrals are internal referrals, which is where they're passing you on to their immediate colleagues, different departments, different divisions, different levels, whatever it may be. Now, internal referrals, in my experience, are almost always stronger than the external referrals, because with an internal referral, you've got the business basis sorted out, you've got the fees sorted, you've got the other person that you're being referred to has the ability to check on your performance. And if you're referring somebody internally, that tends to carry more weight, more significance than if you're passing on an external referral. There's exceptions, but the last 30 years, my experience has been that internal referrals are much more powerful and lead much more quickly to revenue than external referrals. But external referrals, where people introduce you to their friends, former colleagues, associates, suppliers, whoever, those external referrals, whilst having less juice to them, referral juice, what they do have is the ability to produce really big revenue, just more slowly. There's a slower burn, but quite often a much bigger bang at the end of it. So they do different things in different ways. So that's the framework. The framework is be so trustworthy that, and then get internal, external referrals. Great. How? How? I hear you ask, Stephen, that's all lovely, but tell me how to do it. Show me the how. Here's the how. Here's the framework that I'm going to use for the rest of this session and to lead on to the action plan. The thing that you need to really understand about people is that there's 2 things. One of them is something I've learned from behavioral psychology, which is if you want somebody to do something big, if you ask them to do that big thing, yeah, that's an ask. That's a challenge. But if you ask them to do this very small thing, and this very small thing, and this very small thing, and this slightly bigger thing, and a slightly bigger thing, and another slightly bigger thing, and another slightly bigger thing, and then you ask them to do the big thing, much, much easier. Commitment. Here's a phrase I want you to remember. Commitment isn't something you have, it's something you do. My bet, by the way, is that you're probably in some kind of committed relationship, or you have been in some kind of committed relationship, or you'd like to be in some kind of committed relationship at some point. Well, I should cover just about every contingency. Here's a question. If you're in a committed relationship, how do you know, or how would you know, or how did you know that the other person was committed? And I bet that whatever answer just went through your head, it was something that they did or something that they didn't do. It would have been an action that they took or didn't take. It would be that if they were at home when you came back from work, the dinner was on. Or it would be that they gave you a kiss before they left the house in the morning. Or it would be that they automatically gave you a cuddle before. It would be something. It would be something that they did. And if they stopped doing it or suddenly did it far too often for no apparent reason, the hairs on your neck would go up. Maybe that's just my life experience, but moving on. So commitment isn't something you have, it's something you do. That's the first thing to bear in mind. The second thing to bear in mind is something called reciprocity. If you have the opportunity, get a book by Dr. Robert Cialdini, Cialdini, called Influence, Science and Practice. Robert Cialdini is a fascinating guy, awesome writer, possibly the most boring speaker I've ever seen. It's not his strength at all, but the brain and the willingness to experiment in the real world, absolute genius at it. And within the book, Influence, Science and Practice, Cialdini lays out the 6 rules of influence. And one of the most important ones is reciprocity. If you do something for somebody, that effectively puts some pennies into the emotional piggy bank. And if you've done something for somebody, they feel this kind of compulsion, this draw to do something back for you, to return the favour. Some people just can't stand being in somebody's emotional or actual debt. So they've just got to pay that off as quickly as possible. Other people will just sit there on slow burn. But reciprocity is one of the most fundamental ways that human beings work. There's all sorts of reasons behind it. Read the book. But reciprocity is one of the fundamental psychological tools, together with commitment, which are going to make this framework work. I've got to think about a more elegant way of saying that. Make the framework work. The point being that reciprocity doesn't have a scale, and commitment doesn't start big. So here is what you can do. You give in order to get, but it's not a one-to-one process. You can give small and get big. You can give someone a bit of publicly available information that they may not have seen yet. You can give somebody some feedback, and in return for half a dozen bits of information that they could have got from Google if they'd been bothered, you can put pennies in the emotional piggy bank so that when you ask for a referral, it's there automatically, because they feel they're already in your debt, that they already owe you because you've done things for them. You've given them, so they want to give back to you. And that's the best possible way to get referrals. Give them, or rather give to get. Now, it would be great if you could give people referrals and then get referrals in return, the way BNI and the networking clubs work. That'd be great. But in reality, that's not how most situations work. Does that make sense? So, how do you turn your existing clients into the source for the majority of your future revenue, which is entirely possible? You get deliberate. Like I was saying about me going out to a party, you become deliberate, conscious, careful, thoughtful, planned. You turn it into a strategy that you follow every single day, instead of just something that occasionally happens because, you know, somebody's in the right mood. Leo is in the right phase of Venus or whatever. So you turn it into a process, and here's how you do it. Think about what your clients or your candidates would find interesting. What would groove their truffles? What would they like to know more about? What would they like to be up to date on? And what you can then do is set up automated Google alerts. There's different ways of doing it. I personally use Google. And every day Google does send me an email or a series of emails with information about a topic. So I used to run a marketing agency that did a lot of web design and marketing work around Ibiza and Marbella. And I had Google Alerts set up for any news that involved Ibiza, Marbella. You can imagine there was quite a lot every day. But I was able to pull out the bits that were interesting and just share them. I could share them formally on an email or a DM to somebody. I could just drop them into conversation. Oh, by the way, did you hear about? But I'm looking like an expert. I'm looking like somebody who's switched on and connected. And I'm giving people things that they might find useful when they're talking to other people. So I was able to build up pennies in the emotional piggy bank simply by setting up scheduled Google alerts. Do the same for your candidates and clients. That's number one. Secondly, and you may be doing this already, but probably not for the same purpose, have a very rigid, structured process, schedule, where you're checking in with your clients, your candidates, your former candidates. So, for example, I've mentioned a couple of times that I used to place account executives with commercial insurance brokers. Once I've placed somebody, I'll obviously do the usual, making sure they arrive, get them through the first few weeks, so on and so forth. That was sort of job functional. That was making sure that, honestly, the bill got paid and that everybody was reasonably happy. Month 2, I contacted the account execs and I wanted to know how they were doing, what was going on, what challenges they had, what problems they were having, real detailed stuff, what they were interested in. Yeah? And I'd just shown massive interest in them, and I would share some stuff that was going on with them. So I'm taking an interest in them, which was genuine. I'd share information with them, which I'd taken the trouble of finding out. Even if it was stuff they knew, I'd still gone to the trouble, and I was connected enough to be able to tell them that information. And having had that conversation, I'd ask for a referral. Very specifically, by the way, hopefully you've enjoyed the service. Who else should I be talking to? Who at your old firm, or who are you aware of? Or I'm talking to get a referral. No setup, just instantly, there and then. It ain't no big thing, it's just something I do automatically. Month 3, I'm talking to the client. Same context, how are things going? What numbers have been going on? What's happening with the activity? Booking any business yet? Oh, by the way, here's some gossip and some industry knowledge and something you may not be aware of. Nothing confidential, obviously. And then, oh, by the way, ask for referrals. I personally, just a tactical tip, I generally ask for 3. I've got some friends who ask for 5. They ask for 5 on the basis that they might get 2 or 3. I ask for 3 on the basis that I might get 1 or 2. The reason I only ask for 3 is that I'm going to go back 2 or 3 months, then 2 or 3 months, then 2 or 3 months, and I'm going to go back, and even if I'm not getting any more assignments from somebody, I'm going to go back and have the chat with them. Because if they're unhappy, I want to know about it. If they're happy and we're on the same wavelength and I'm giving them some value, I'll ask for referrals. So, here's the action plan for today. Get together a properly comprehensive list of all your contacts. Clients, potential clients, former clients, candidates, former candidates, everybody you can contact. Prioritize them, which is stage 2. Stage 3, work out what they're going to be interested in, which is stage 3. Stage 4 is set up a system for getting that information, getting information about those topics. And stage 5, diarise and schedule your contacts. Hang on, Stephen, are you seriously saying that I should diarise my informal chats with people. I should have a system for scheduling just catching up with somebody for a chat. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. But Stephen, that's just a waste of my time. It is if you don't use it to bring out referrals. If you're just calling someone to shoot the breeze and have a chat, yeah, probably a waste of time. If you're calling someone to shoot the breeze and have a chat and get internal and external referrals, that, my friend, is probably the most valuable use of your time that day. Short of sending out an invoice, obviously. Give to get, but do it regularly. Be methodical, be strategic, be planned, and be focused. And that way, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, or somewhere between the two, you will be able to turn your existing clients into your biggest source of new business. Just a thought. It's only a suggestion.